In 1950, high above the Balkan Mountains, arms dealer Anatol Varna was aboard his private jet, reveling in the luxury of his surroundings. Suddenly, a loud explosion shattered the calm, and he turned to see his assistant engulfed in flames, creating a gaping hole in the aircraft's wall. The plane began to plummet, and Anatol rushed to the cockpit, offering the pilot hurried advice on how to regain control. However, when one of the engines caught fire, the pilot panicked, blaming Anatol for ignoring his warnings about flying that day. The pilot threatened to report him to the aviation authority if they survived, prompting Anatol to dismiss him and eject the pilot's seat before taking over the controls himself. Moments later, the plane crashed into a cornfield, and news of Anatol's presumed death spread rapidly. However, his soul found itself in the afterlife, standing next to his grandmother, who did not recognize him. A divine court deliberated on his worthiness for heaven, but before a verdict could be reached, Anatol awoke in the wreckage, severely injured but alive. He staggered across the cornfield and interrupted a live news report featuring the pilot, ensuring that headlines would announce his survival. Back at his mansion, a team of nurses tended to his wounds. Meanwhile, a clandestine organization known as Excalibur was plotting against him, discussing his various crimes, including tax evasion and bribery. They unanimously agreed that it was time to take Anatol down for good. Once he regained his strength, Anatol arranged a meeting with his only daughter, Liesel, who had become a nun. To her shock, he declared her the sole heir to his fortune, bypassing her 9 brothers. Anatol had always neglected his biological sons in favor of adopted orphans, who watched from the balcony. Liesel, suspicious of her father's sudden affection after 6 years of absence, questioned his motives. He explained that he wanted her to avenge him if his enemies succeeded in killing him, then revealed a series of boxes containing plans for his latest project, dubbed the Phoenician Scheme. Liesel interrupted, asking about her mother, whom she had heard Anatol had killed. He vehemently denied the accusations, claiming he had never harmed anyone and professing his fondness for Liesel's mother. However, this did not explain why he had abandoned Liesel at a convent when she was just 5 years old. Ignoring her concerns, Anatol continued to detail the contents of the boxes, which included plans for a dam, a canal, a tunnel, and negotiations with powerful figures in shipping, mining, and finance. His ultimate goal was to dominate the businesses in Phoenicia, utilizing slave labor to do so. Their conversation was interrupted when one of the boys accidentally shot a flaming arrow that landed on one of the boxes. The butler quickly extinguished the fire, and Anatol left the room to manage his unruly sons. Upon his return, Liesel noticed her father's new assistant, Bjorn, nearby. When she inquired about the last box, Anatol cryptically referred to it as the gap, promising to discuss it later. He urged Liesel to leave the church and assist him, but she remained cautious. During lunch, Anatol subjected Bjorn to a polygraph test to ensure he was not an undercover agent. Over the next few days, as Anatol continued to unveil his contraband, Liesel analyzed the contents of the boxes, realizing the unethical nature of her father's plans. Despite her moral reservations, she contemplated whether aligning with him could provide her the fortune needed to help others. As Bjorn began tutoring the boys, Liesel noticed their lack of familial affection. One morning, Anatol revealed that Liesel's mother had not died by suicide, as officially stated, but had been murdered, likely by his half-brother Nubar. Despite their animosity, the brothers still conducted business together, and Nubar was involved in one of Anatol's plans. Liesel resolved to confront her uncle to seek justice, agreeing to sign the deal with her father and join his scheme. Meanwhile, Excalibur was preparing to disrupt Anatol's operations by manipulating the market for a crucial component known as the bashable rivet. As prices soared, Anatol realized they were being sabotaged and decided to take immediate action. He announced that they would leave on his private plane, having arranged for arsonists to burn down his house for insurance money if necessary. They would need to renegotiate all agreements with their partners. As they flew, Liesel discovered a mysterious box containing hand grenades. When she asked if he had ever used them, Anatol avoided the question. He then put Bjorn through another polygraph test, leaving him in charge of the cash bag. During their flight, Liesel and Bjorn began to bond, with Bjorn expressing his disbelief in God and calling her lovely. As they prepared to land, Anatole revealed he had no passport, claiming to be a citizen of nowhere, free from human rights. Suddenly, a noise startled them, and Anatole casually mentioned a previous bomb scare, causing Liesel to pray. They eventually arrived at a mountain where a locomotive tunnel was under construction. While observing the project, Anatole confessed that he had never lost interest in Liesel, revealing that his associates had been spying on her all along. Just then, a group of assassins on camels appeared, prompting Anatole to instruct his driver to retrieve the grenades. Liesel, armed with a knife, prepared to defend herself, but the driver was shot down before they could react. Fortunately, Prince Farouk and his bodyguard arrived just in time, scaring off the attackers. Farouk complimented Liesel, lamenting that she was a nun, and gifted her a fancier knife in return for a grenade from Anatole. Afterward, they explored the tunnel, which trembled as they walked through. Liesel expressed concern about its safety, but Anatole reassured her. Both Farouk and Bjorn offered to hold her hand for comfort, but she declined. At the tunnel's end, they encountered workers and financier brothers, Leland and Reagan, who were furious over Anatole's modifications to their contract. After a fruitless argument, Anatole proposed a basketball game to settle their differences. The brothers would face Anatole and Farouk, who had never played before. While waiting, Bjorn encouraged Liesel to try alcohol for the first time, using the opportunity to flirt with her. The brothers taunted Farouk, distracting him and causing him to miss most of his shots. As hope dwindled, Anatole shared the story of Liesel's birth, revealing that he had cut her umbilical cord. He expressed regret for sending her to the convent, believing it had brainwashed her into piety, when his true intention was to keep her away from his sons. He also disclosed that she was named after his grandmother and that she was the only child he had ever wanted to raise. Anatole then challenged the brothers to one final shot. If Farouk succeeded, they would revert to the original contract, but the brothers would have to cover 10% of the gap. If he missed, Anatole would give them all the money he had brought. The brothers agreed, and Liesel prayed for Farouk, who miraculously made the shot. Later, Anatole experienced another vision of the afterlife, where he presented a deer carcass to his 3 deceased wives, only to have coins spill from its body. One of the wives revealed that Liesel was not his daughter. Just then, Anatole awoke in the plain, telling Liesel that she had his eyes. She glanced at a picture of her uncle and noticed the same resemblance. A phone call from Bob, one of the project's partners, interrupted them. Anatole informed him that the brothers had agreed to cover the entire gap, but Liesel scolded him for lying, to which Anatole replied that it was merely a strategy. Suddenly, Bjorn discovered a bomb set to detonate in 18 minutes, but Anatole dismissed it, claiming they would land in 10. That evening, they visited Bob's club, where Anatole gifted him a hand grenade while Liesel enjoyed another drink. During dinner, Bob received an anonymous letter attempting to blackmail him into covering the remaining gap. Recognizing Anatole's handwriting, an argument ensued, during which Anatole admitted that the brothers and Farouk had only agreed to a small percentage of the gap. Their confrontation was abruptly interrupted when a guerrilla unit led by Sergio stormed the club, opening fire. Bob confronted them, but Anatole shielded him, taking a bullet that fortunately did not kill him due to the papers in his pocket. Afterward, Anatole insisted that Bob keep the bullet as a token, impressing Bob enough to agree to cover part of the gap. Later, the group boarded a ship to meet Captain Marty, another ally in Anatole's scheme. Marty was aware of the gap and refused to cover it, but Anatole insisted that he was only there for a symbolic meeting, gifting him a hand grenade. Suddenly, Anatole collapsed from blood loss, leading to another vision of the afterlife. This time, a child version of Liesel recounted the traumatic night of her mother's death, revealing how Anatole had told her she would no longer live there. Realizing he was on trial, Anatole awoke to find a sailor performing a blood transfusion between him and Marty. As he regained consciousness, Anatole began to share new details about Liesel's mother, revealing that she had many lovers, including Anatole's brother Nubar, which had fueled his anger. He had once written a letter to Nubar, pretending to be his wife, to end their relationship, claiming she had taken up with the secretary. Anatole believed this had led Nubar to kill them both. When Liesel asked if he had loved her mother, he admitted he had not, only being fond of her, prompting Liesel to slap him. To his surprise, she forgave him, stating she had always expected the worst from him. Afterward, Anatole presented a new proposal to Marty, but the captain dismissed it, leading to a heated argument. In a moment of frustration, Anatole pulled the pin from a grenade, causing everyone to laugh at the absurdity of the situation, which ultimately led Marty to agree to contribute to the gap. Meanwhile, Excalibur received reports on Anatole's movements, confirming that a spy was leaking information. Later, Anatole met with his second cousin Hilda, proposing marriage but clarifying that Liesel would remain the sole heir to his fortune. Hilda accepted the ring without a word, then recounted a family feud that had torn their lineage apart. Despite Anatole's pleas, Hilda refused to help cover the gap. Liesel pressed her for information about her mother's death and whether Nubar was her father, but Hilda only knew rumors. On the plane, Anatole opened a letter detailing an emergency directive, revealing that a parliamentary motion had been passed to stop him. He needed to return home with a notary by noon the next day or face imprisonment. As he sought a change of route from the pilot, Liesel noticed Bjorn tapping out Morse code. Their conversation was cut short when Anatole activated the emergency alarm, discovering that the pilot had been poisoned, leaving Anatole in charge of the plane. After ejecting the pilot, a fighter jet appeared, opening fire and damaging the aircraft, which ultimately crashed in a forest. The group survived, but Bjorn's bag burst open, revealing fake passwords that confirmed he was a spy for Excalibur. After shedding his awkward demeanor for a more confident persona, Bjorn explained that he had been following orders and had no loyalty to Anatole. When Anatole attempted to confront him, Bjorn easily overpowered him, expressing his willingness to switch sides due to his feelings for Liesel. Suddenly, Anatole found himself sinking into quicksand, pleading for them not to help him as he wanted to save himself. However, Bjorn jumped in to rescue him, and Liesel kissed him for his bravery. Anatole lost consciousness and experienced another vision of the afterlife, where he implored God to accept slavery. When he awoke, he found that Bjorn had saved him, and he questioned how Bjorn had passed the polygraph test. Bjorn revealed he had been trained to deceive it easily. The trio decided to spend the night in the wreckage of the plane, sharing stories of their troubled childhoods. Liesel announced her desire to leave her father's world behind and return to the church. Just then, they were interrupted by Sergio and his team, who arrived to take them away in their plane. Upon their return home, the Mother Superior awaited Liesel, informing her that she was not meant for a religious life and dismissing her from the convent. In gratitude, Anatole donated money for church repairs and confided in her about his visions, pondering whether he should be baptized for a better afterlife. Later, Anatole took Liesel to a safe, presenting her with a box left by his father's notary, which he had never opened. Liesel promised to examine its contents later. During dinner, Anatole explained that the other investors would gather at the Desert Palace Hotel for the presentation of the Phoenician Scheme, necessitating a new plan. This involved marrying Hilda and getting baptized to officially become Catholic, hoping that this, along with baptizing his sons, would persuade the Pope to invest. Anatole then asked Bjorn to introduce him to Excalibur, vowing not to let them win. At the hotel, as Anatole, Liesel, Bjorn, and Sergio rode the elevator, Anatole recognized the operator as an assassin. Everyone prepared for a confrontation, but the assassin unexpectedly took his own life with poison. Before entering the office, Anatole asked Liesel to allow him to adopt her if she turned out not to be his biological daughter, to which she agreed. Finally, they met with Nubar, who declined Anatole's grenade, revealing he already possessed one. Nubar disclosed that Liesel's mother had indeed had an affair with the secretary, likely making him Liesel's true father, but he denied any involvement in her death. A heated argument erupted between the brothers, and Anatole used a polygraph to prove he had not killed any of his wives. Liesel opened the box from the safe, discovering various family mementos, including photographs, letters, poison gas capsules, her grandfather's ashes, and a key. Nubar then announced he was withdrawing from the project, having only come to the hotel out of curiosity. In the elevator, Anatole confided in Liesel and Bjorn that he would sacrifice all his remaining wealth to cover the gap and even pay the slaves, hoping this would give his life meaning. Liesel felt proud of him, stating she did not need a fortune. During the meeting, Anatole's declaration was overheard by Excalibur through a hidden microphone. All the investors signed the necessary paperwork, and Anatole presented them with a diorama of the project. Just then, a servant informed him that Nubar was looking for him, prompting Anatole to leave the meeting. In a separate room, Nubar revealed to Anatole that he had changed his mind and wanted to take matters into his own hands. Anatole assumed he meant the business deal, but Nubar confessed to being the one who had sent assassins after him, leading to a violent confrontation. The brothers fought fiercely, tumbling down the stairs and using whatever objects they could find as weapons. In the chaos, Nubar threw a poison gas capsule, but it merely bounced off Anatole's forehead. Seizing the opportunity, Anatole caught the capsule and hurled it back at his brother before fleeing. Afterward, Anatole returned to the meeting room, only to find Nubar appearing on the diorama. As Nubar prepared to throw a grenade, Anatole pleaded for communication. Nubar, haunted by visions of their family, ultimately used the grenade to take his own life, which also destroyed the diorama. In one final vision of the afterlife, Anatole and Liesel placed the ashes back into the safe. In the time that followed, Anatole embraced a simpler life with Liesel and the boys, who finally received the familial love they had long been denied. Bjorn left Excalibur's agency to work at a school, while Hilda annulled her marriage to Anatole and established her own camp. Anatole opened a restaurant, with Liesel assisting him as a waitress. When Hilda returned the engagement ring, Bjorn seized the moment to propose to Liesel. After a long day of work, Anatole and Liesel enjoyed a quiet evening together, playing cards and sharing laughter. Liesel hoped that the Phoenician scheme would ultimately provide honest work for those in need, marking a new chapter in their lives filled with hope and redemption. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.